Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Sunday, the 25th of June, 2023. And daughter, I'm making this video for you, and the topic is the Thunder of Meekness, a paradox. Daughter, I just want to also mention that I know sometimes your father can be a little harsh, and I apologize for that. I realize that there are things in my heart that when I'm injured is when I maybe it could be a little harder. But remember, your father loves you. So regarding the concept of meekness and the power of it, um, we know that meekness is mentioned in the Beatitudes. You'll find in Matthew 5. 1, where Jesus is giving the Sermon on the Mount regarding the Beatitudes. And And it's an interesting thing because meekness is like it says, those that are meek will inherit. There's a paradox, another paradox of the Beatitudes, and I'm not going to discuss the Beatitudes in general, but mostly meekness. Another one would be blessed are the poor in spirit, or blessed are those who mourn, for they'll be comforted. So these are paradoxes, and the concept is that how does the world look at meekness? Really, the concept of meekness to the world is a measure of capitulation. Oh, and by the way, I'm doing a different type of recording this time. I'm kind of doing it in steps. I'll pause it and I'll come back. So bear with me. I'm trying this out for the first time, friends and family, and anybody else who watches it. I'm always happy to have you. Anyway, so how does the world see meekness? Well, not very flatteringly. Meekness is actually a wonderful trait that the powerful often hold, but also those who are timid or bashful. Meekness to the world is considered a form of something to be shunned, a cowardice, like to capitulate, to surrender, to be meek. The world views it that way, but we know that much of what the world sees that God holds high, the world sees it as low. But being meek is powerful. It's a thunder, a quiet thunder. So to be meek has great value. Thinking about those people that are poor in spirit, that's the first beatitude. Do you feel they're meek? Absolutely. They realize their inadequacy. And if we take it a step further and we think about Solomon when he had that dream and the Lord said to him, "What shall I grant you?" Well, he at that moment realizes that he's bankrupt. He realizes that he says, "I'm a child. I don't know when to come out. I don't know when to go in." He realizes that he's inadequate. And the Lord says, now I can use you, Solomon. Now you're something I can put into. Remember, when Jesus came, he didn't go to the scribes and the Pharisees. He went to the lowly shepherds. So the concept is, daughter, you can never be too small for Jesus to use in his mission, but you can be too big. And if we think of Isaiah, when he said, "My lips are dirty," and not only that, I'm in a community of people with unclean lips. Or Peter, when he denied Jesus and went out and wept bitterly. That's when he was actually converted. Peter, he was converted at that time because he was so discouraged in his behavior. It broke his heart. When we are broken, we can be used by God. Remember, the soil must be broken so that a seed can be planted. As the shoot comes up through the soil, the seed dies that it may sprout into a plant that may be utilized. So again, we want to remember that when we realize that ourselves are not doing very well, I myself have things about me that, daughter, that I'm very disappointed in. Certain behaviors and such that, I see the areas, and it reconfirms to me, friends, and so that I am his child. I am one of his because I get chastised. I've not grieved away the Holy Spirit. I am rebuked when I do things that are wrong, and as a result, I know that I have a Father in heaven who I'm under his care, even though I'm a child. I don't know when to go out and when to come in. I don't have any idea. All I know is that I'm terribly inadequate, but he uses this broken man to reach others. So that's my first point that I wanted to get across. Now I'm going to pause this. I will be back. Okay, so now let's think about this for a moment regarding now how does the Bible see meekness as power? Um, People that are meek and bashful and scared, worry, it's a measure of desperation. But with God, Jesus was meek. And look at him. He was meek in spirit. He was modest. He was temperate. His clothing were plain. His food was plain. Um, he was a very, very different man in that regard. Excuse me one moment. He was a different man in that regard. He was meek, but the biblical definition of meekness is power under restraint. If we look at David, and we look at Isaiah, and we look at Peter, and we look at Solomon, these were powerful men that were brought down so that they can be used. And hold on one second. That were brought down so that they can be used, but they also were men from positions of power. So they many times they were merciful to people. They were kind to people. And but at first they were meek, and they were continuing to be meek as their lives continued because they realized they could do nothing without God. They may have title king, but in actuality, they were servants and proud to be. And we're all supposed to be very proud to serve God. Don't serve man. Do your work as you need to have a roof over your head and those kinds of things, food, but do not pursue the treasures that man holds high. Remember, what God esteems high, man esteems low. Oh, you bust tables, you clean bathrooms. Oh, but God says, but those jobs are necessary. That which God esteems low, the world esteems high. They have all this foolishness. They're always telling you, you're not good enough, the commercials they have. So poor people, they actually trust God more. When you think about it, they trust God more. They give more. And my personal opinion, daughter, is that and friends and family, those that are in poverty, I feel, are closer to heaven than they realize. It's an absolute truth. So being poor is safer than being rich. Very few rich people actually make it to heaven, and that's a fact. Now, you might say to yourself, if Abraham was rich, Solomon was rich, David was, like Abraham, for example, let's just take him. Yeah, he had herds and such, and like Job, but they slept in the same kind of tent that his servants slept in. Now, do you think that the rich of today sleep in the same kind of tent that we sleep in? I think not. Okay, friends, I'll be back. And also, friends, doesn't Jesus call us to be meek? He does so in Matthew 11:29. He's very direct about it. He says, take my yoke upon you and develop a character of a meek character, and you will find rest. You'll be at ease. Do those people who pursue riches, that clamor, and like people that are drowning, they'll grab anything to get themselves higher in the world hierarchy, which is just all garbage. Who was it? Rockefeller. He was asked, I think, by Barbara Walters, what would it take for you to be content? Or, what would it take for you to be happy? in regards to, your wealth. And he answered, he was a billionaire at the time. He said, a little bit more. They never have any peace. Jesus says, take my yoke upon you, because my yoke is easy. A yoke, like two oxen are yoked together. He says, I can carry your burden for you. The poem Footprints, that says, the guy thought, oh my goodness, you left me. I was walking by myself. There was one set of footprints. And I would have expanded. I would have said, when he said, if you look at those footprints, when we walked together, they were only so deep. But when you look at when they're walking alone, they're twice as deep. Why? Because I carried you. So, again, dissatisfaction comes to the pagan and the heathen because they're selfish. They have pride. They never have peace. They're never meek. They have to be like ravenous wolves that'll tear apart anybody to get to their little whatever it is that they're chasing, which ends up being nothing, actually. Another good definition of meekness would be gentle and demonstrating a form of gentleness and a form of humility, slow to anger. If you're driving along and if you've developed through the confidence that God loves you and you have that foundation and someone cuts you off hard, what does the pagan do? What does the heathen do? Or the Christian who's not fully converted? They fly into a rage. What does the meek person do? What would Jesus do? He would say, go on in. I'm not even going to honk my horn. Jesus would just say, Jesus is founded with who he is. And like people like Job or people like that have suffered and realized how desperate their circumstances were, they're not going to get bent out of shape because someone cuts you off. That's not going to happen. So another definition would definitely be a gentleness of spirit and humility. When you are actually meek because you're founded and secure, you could be generous and pass it on to others. Perhaps another way to look at it is, originally when the way we are before our eyes are open, we're like a bucking bronco. We're very difficult to work with, and dangerous. If you've ever been around a horse, that is bucking like that, you could be injured or killed very easily. But the concept of becoming meek in a godly way is when we become submissive, we become patient. Think of that horse. Eventually the horse will submit to the bit in its mouth, and will walk next to you in a submissive. Does it mean it loses any of its power or strength or dangerousness? No, but it's under restraint. Eventually what happens to us is that we become submissive and accept the bridle that the Lord places in our mouth, that we may be led, maybe with someone that we carry, but being submissive to God, that we would have him place that bridle in our mouth and not resent it. And doesn't he say, if someone slaps you on the left side of your face, offer the other side as well to be slapped. Now that's meekness. That goes. Now, I also believe that Christianity, daughter, is a fighting religion. I believe that that's a slap. But if we see people that, let's say a little girl's getting hurt by an adult, in a terrible way, or maybe a stranger, or something, we are required to act. But Jesus overturned the tables of the money exchangers in the temple. He took action. He had a whip, and I know he was cracking that whip around, but I don't think he hit anybody. But they all ran from him. Now think of it this way: these people are rich. Their money means a lot to them, but they ran from the meekness of Jesus, especially when they saw how he could be indignant by certain behaviors. So now meekness is really the opposite of pride. And we know that we are never more like the devil than when we're full of pride. And the last thing we are is meek. And the world sees that behavior or those traits as honorable and something to look up to. But that which the world holds high, God, it's detestable. It leaves a stench in his nostrils. So, meekness is equivalent to humility, which is a wonderful trait. Now, think about Jesus. His whole persona was meek. He was virtually homeless. I've mentioned this in prior videos. And he had very small meals. And as I mentioned earlier, he's the kind of man that if he saw you, he would take his only little meal and quietly pass it over to you. Now, all of you know that's true. But in Isaiah 53, it talks about, well, in the Bible, it talks about Jesus was of no reputation. Isaiah 53 speaks of his physical appearance, that not that he calls him homely, but he certainly is not a Clark Gable, not handsome like all the pictures of Jesus. This is Doubting Thomas going prostate. I made this 35 years ago, daughter. But in Isaiah 35, read for yourself. It demonstrates that his appearance was, you would easily miss him in a crowd. But what made the difference? The way he spoke. He spoke like a king, a very meek king. His first coming was to be that of humble. The devil always switches things. His first time he came as a lamb, a humble sacrifice, to be ill-treated, to be spat upon, to have his beard pulled, to be whipped. That idiot Pilate says, I see nothing wrong with this man, but I'll scourge him. And he whips him with a cat of nine tails 39 times. If he was an innocent man, why did he do that to him? It was written in Psalms 22. The whole crucifixion was recognized in that psalm. Certain things you could produce if you know about the writing beforehand. Certain things you can't. How did they know he was going to get betrayed for 30 pieces of silver? And a whole bunch of others, the way they divided his clothing, blah, blah, blah. This form of meekness in regards to his appearance, we would never have seen him. We would have never have recognized him. He was a man of no absolute reputation. But when he spoke with the authority and the power of God. This is going pretty good. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't complete. The devil always switches things around. He gives God his attributes. He takes God's attributes. When Jesus first came, he came as a lamb, a lowly person. He was born in a barn. When somebody says, are you born in a barn? Remember that old saying from way back? Well, Jesus was born in a barn. He took the very lowest. He took the lowest position. He came as a lamb to be slaughtered. What did the apostles, including Judas, they thought he was going to come and lead the armies and destroy Rome. No, that's his second coming. His second coming, he comes as a lion. He comes with his reward is with him. Let those who are holy remain holy. Let those who are wicked remain wicked. That probation closes prior to his coming. But the devil switches those things. He says, when he comes a second time, it'll be a secret rapture. People will be thrown up and go up into the sky and their clothes left behind. No, that's not at all what happens. Not even close. But they believe it. No, the first time he came as a meek. He was held hostage. He was murdered in a very horrible way. And from the cross, he blessed people. They couldn't stop Jesus from saving people, even on the cross. When he said to the thief next to him, I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise. So, and then when he comes, the only power we have not to be deceived is to know the scriptures, because a lot of Christianity gets it wrong. So, just to finish this video up, how are we born? we want to be king. We want to be God. It's all about me, 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 me. And only through being broken down can we get to the point where we can be used, you know. Remember, I just want to give a shout out to Doug Batchelor and Amazing Facts. I love Amazing Facts. It's a it's a great Doug Batchelor. These thoughts I give you they're mostly my thoughts, but I go to him for inspiration. You know, I've been listening to his sermons for 25, 30 years, and I love the guy. You know, him and Joe Cruz. There's other pastors, you know, Vodi Bachman. There's a variety of pastors I really like. But remember, if you ever get a chance to watch Amazing Facts, I think it'll make a difference to you. Daughter, I hope you enjoyed this video on meekness. And even though sometimes I could be a son of thunder, I'm trying to push that. I like the fact that I'm a soldier for Jesus, but the concept of always having to, you know, me, I'm doing my best. And when I've been injured, dear, with our relationship, I'm trying to become an adult and to understand that sometimes people are a little different. So I just wanted to let you know that I love you very much. And to all my friends, I wanted to say hi, and my family members, whoever sees this. I wanted to tell you that I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching my video.